Good evening and welcome to the, May 1, 2024 regular meeting of the Holland City Council. I'm Mayor Nathan Box and I'm calling the meeting to order. Brenda, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Bird.
Present.
Vreemond.
Here.
Raymond. Corbin. Soul.
Present.
Shea.
Here.
Schulteis.
Present.
Mayor Box.
Present.
We do have a quorum.
Wonderful, thank you. We're going to begin this evening's meeting as we have for many years, first with an opening prayer by Council Member Vreeman this evening, followed immediately by the Pledge of Allegiance, and we would invite you to join us if you would like.
Ask that you join me in prayer if you'd be inclined. Lord Jesus, we come before you this afternoon, and we're thankful for this day of work and all the different responsibilities that we've had throughout it. We thank you for the gift of life that you've granted to each one of us and the abilities that we've had to serve you in this day. We would now ask that as we would engage in the business and conversations of our city, that you might give us listening ears, that we can hear from our citizens, that we can converse well and debate what our agenda holds this evening, and that we might be able to honor our community, honor the plans that have been put in place, and that this community might thrive and prosper because of it. We put also this coming week before you, that that you would give all of our residents and businesses the ability to put on great hospitality and a welcoming spirit as we engage in this Tulip Time Festival. Thank you again for the gift of life that you granted each one of us, and it's by your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Vreeman. Next item on our agenda are our consent agenda items. These are items that are considered to be fairly routine, and they will be enacted in one motion unless a member of the public or a member of council asks to have the item removed from the consent agenda, and then in that instance it will be placed in its regular order on the regular agenda. But before I do that, Brenda, would you please review the consent agenda for us?
4A, excuse the absences of council members Rowan, Raymond, and Corbin. 4B, approve the minutes of the April 17, 2024 regular meeting. 4C, accept executed oaths of office. 4D, a tax abatement, PA 198 from LG Energy Solution, Michigan. 4E, an annual license renewal for 2024-25. 4F, a redevelopment liquor license request for Michigan Coffee Crew, Holland Downtown. 4G, the Van Raalte Farm Civil War Muster Historic Saloon, September 20 to 22. 4H, a PA 198 tax abatement request from LT Precision, Michigan, set a public hearing for May 15. 4I, the Holland Local Development Finance Authority, Smart Zone, approved the fiscal year 2025 budget. 4J, recycling infrastructure grant application for recycling drop-off center. 4K, purchase plow truck and equipment. 4L, purchase a concrete grinder. 4M, upgrade the existing in-ground hoist. 4N, a revocable license agreement for 778 Columbia Avenue for an awning. 4O, Downtown Group Windmill Island Gardens, approve of art on the Island Gala special liquor license for 2024. And 4P, from the Downtown Group Windmill Island Gardens, approve the catering agreements for the 2024 season.
Great. Thank you, Brenda. Is there anyone here who would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda and placed on its the regular agenda? Seeing no one in the public, any member of council that would like to have an item removed from consent and placed on the regular agenda? Seeing none there either. What is the pleasure of council in regard to the consent agenda?
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Moved by Vreeman. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Soul. Any discussion? Brenda, would you please call the roll?
Okay, Bird,
Yes.
Vreeman,
Yes.
Soul,
Yes.
Shay,
Yes.
Schultheis,
Yes.
and Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Under the Open Meetings Act of the State of Michigan, we allow for members of the public to address council not only in our regular meetings, but also in our study sessions and frankly at every board, committee, and commission meeting that we have. We do have guidelines that we ask you to follow in regard to the public comment. First, when you approach the podium, please state your name and the municipality in which you live. We do limit your time to 5 minutes. And there are 3 lights on the dais. There's a green light, a yellow light, and a red light. The dais right in front of me. The green light means you're doing well on time. The yellow light means that you have 1 minute left. And the red light means that your time has expired, and we are strict about that. You can speak one time about any subject that you would like to. We do ask that you address council because this is communication to us. It is also one-way communication. We don't engage in conversation, discussion, or answer questions directly during public comment period. Again, it's one-way communication for you to be able to speak about what you think is important. And also, we ask that if you're here to speak about something on which there is a public hearing later on the agenda, and we've got a number of public hearings in regard to the budget, and I'm sure that's what you're all here to talk about tonight, is about the city budget. So if you have one of those, please wait until we have the public hearing to speak about that particular item. But having said that, if there's anyone here who would like to address council on an item that is not otherwise set for a public hearing tonight, please come forward and state your name and municipality for the record. Good evening, and would you please state your name and municipality for the record?
Good evening. I'm Jan Dirksey, and I live in the city of Holland. And I was born and raised in Holland. In my early years, I had a career in corrections. I was a corrections officer at the Michigan Training Unit. I was the special activities director in Saugatuck at the Michigan Dunes Correctional Facility. And then I was the chief probation officer for the city of Wyoming at 62A District Court. On occasion, from my downtown condominium, I have witnessed people taking shelter in the parking garage stairwells. They were later moved along by police officers and given citations for loitering. But where are these people to go? I often worry about those humans when I am in my comfortable home and even far away during my travels. But I do what I can. For the past 5 years, I have had the privilege of volunteering with Refresh Hygiene and Hope, which we just call Refresh. It is a wonderful resource for the people experiencing homelessness. Refresh has had over 33,000 sign-ins in the 5 years of existence. Refresh is literally, as I speak, operating just 2 blocks away from here. It is located in the First United Methodist Church. Refresh welcomes people in need every week on Tuesday and Friday mornings and Wednesday evenings. Volunteers are there to kindly greet our guests, provide them with shower, hot meal, mail service, and so much more. Twice a month, we have haircuts and bicycle repair. Also, Ottawa County Community Mental Health and Ottawa County Health Department offer their assistance. Refresh works alongside the wonderful outreach team of Community Action House, who offer a multitude of resources and services. Refresh is a place for the underserved and those experiencing homelessness to come together. It is truly a community within our community. Not always evident, but the Holland area does have a real problem with homelessness, which is not being addressed in a collaborative effort. When I worked at the Dunes in Saugatuck, that prison, as you can imagine, was not initially welcomed by the residents. However, when the state of Michigan had not assigned a chaplain to serve the prison, area clergy from a variety of denominations and faiths stepped up to take on those responsibilities. I coordinated all the religious activities for the prison with the established chaplaincy board and volunteers. As far as we knew, it was the first time a collaborative effort was made by all area churches to fill such needs. And I must say, it worked beautifully. Wouldn't it be wonderful if the community came together again to fill such needs? Maybe everyone in Holland would then be able to honestly say, quoting Mayor Box, "This is Holland, working together, building community, and we get to live here. As you may have heard, this past January, during a week of bitter cold temperatures, First United Methodist Church and Refresh opened their doors as an emergency overnight warming center. It was quickly thrown together by faithful volunteers. It was a very positive experience, which my Refresh friends will now expand upon to show the many needs in our Holland area neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we have our next public commenter, Brenda, would you please note for the record that Mr. Corbin joined us at 6:09 p.m. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council?
Hello, Your Honor. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, and would you please state your name and municipality for the record?
My name is Sarah Harrison Silsby. What Brenda had to say is 100% true about our economy. I was homeless for 4 years and 10 months, and I finally had gotten my place. I want to give a special shout out to Miss Shelley for helping me get that, because there was a time where I was hopeless and homeless, and I had nothing, and I had no family. It was very hard for me, and I try to help people that the best I can, because I have my place. And it's just like, I see a lot of people that are sleeping in parking garages at the park. It's hard. And in my opinion, I feel as if we should get more affordable housing units or more landlords that would be willing to accept a voucher, or like just more like another Falcon Woods. We need that because there's a lot of people out here suffering.
Great, thank you. And would you please tell us where you live, what municipality you live in?
I live in middle class. I'm on disability, Social Security. I live on 19th Street in Holland, Michigan.
Okay.
I was raised and born here, born and raised here. I'm sorry. It's a lot of anxiety up here, but it's an honor to be here. Honestly, I just feel like, as our mayor, you should put up more affordable housing, or like more units that are willing to take the voucher, more landlords that are accepting with criminal backgrounds, if that makes sense, or like with people who like go to community mental health. Because I say, this is my joke, I'm crazy so I pay my rent, but I go to community mental health and they help pay for my rent. So it's like, it's a great thing. I have my cat, I have my dog, and I couldn't be more happy to have made it off the streets of Holland, because I've seen what it's like. And it wasn't just Holland, it was Grand Haven, Muskegon, Kalamazoo, everywhere, and it's all like this. But it's like, we give out these nice vouchers, and it's like, well, what landlord are we going to take it to? What unit can we take this to? It took me almost 3 months to find my place, just my unit. And my voucher was already generated. See, the thing is that at Good Samaritans, they make you wait for your voucher to be pulled. I didn't have to do that, but it was still like a needle in a haystack trying to find that voucher, trying to get that unit. You know what I mean? And it's like, I kept saying, like, my child's in foster care, I need help. Nobody wanted to help me. And then I finally found somebody who would. And I called my mother, I said, Mom, I got the place. She's like, yes, you can finally move out. So that's all I really got. But it's been an honor to be here, Nathan.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? And would you please state your name and municipality for the record?
My name is Eric Parsons. I live in Grand Rapids, but I work in Holland. My name is Eric Parsons. I've worked in the city of Holland for almost 10 years, or for over 10 years, almost 9 of which have been at the Herrick District Library. I have been proud to serve this community, and during that time I have met many people from different walks of life, rich, poor, housed, and unhoused. It is the last group that I have come to talk about today. Starting this past fall, I've been the library's outreach liaison to Refresh at the United Methodist Church. I've seen with my own eyes the power of partnership and good this community can do when we come together and pool our resources to help those who need it. The partnership between Community Action House, Community Mental Health, the churches, and various other organizations has been very helpful to the unhoused community. At Refresh, people can get things such as cooked meals, haircuts, medication, clothing, and blankets for warmth. However, there is more that needs to be done. Over the years of working at the library, I've noticed, as I'm sure as you all have, that the number of people experiencing homelessness has only increased. These are people who have come on hard, difficult times and are trying to live day by day. The lack of affordable housing in the city aside, it only gets harder for people experiencing homelessness in the winter months here. Without a more permanent, designated area for people to find shelter from the below freezing temperatures, my concern is that the city will lose some of its citizens to the elements. Growing up, I was taught to be kind to others, treat them how you'd want to be treated, and to help the downtrodden. Well, here is an opportunity to do just that. As it stands, we have several services that address various issues. As wonderful as these services and people who staff them are, they address piecemeal problems in a much larger issue. The burden of responsibility is falling on those who work these various services to reach out and interact with other community services. Try as we might, without a dedicated, centralized effort to address the issue as a whole and offer legitimate and productive avenues towards moving from a street to a permanent residence and employment, we are merely applying short-term bandages to cover up small parts of a larger issue. Over the last year, myself and those within the library have done extensive training to better understand the emotional and psychological issues experienced by unhoused individuals and the community at large. The framing around unhoused communities tends to be one of fear and dismissal, which only increases the stress of those experiencing homelessness. It also deters the general public from productively engaging in addressing the issue. The state of being unhoused is dangerous and traumatic to those experiencing it. And without committing to a solution, this population will only continue to grow and have far-reaching consequences in our community. Thank you for my time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? And would you please state your name and municipality for the record?
Yes, my name is Javier Ramirez, and I am a resident of Holland. Thank you, Holland City Council, for giving me this opportunity to speak out and having my voice be heard. I want to start by telling you that I was in the foster care system from age 9 to 17. I was transitioned from Kent County Juvenile Detention Center into foster care. Through DA Blodgett. During those years, I am in 2 different foster homes with both bad and good experiences. Then after 17, I was back into my mother's care in Grand Rapids. When I was 18 years old, I made the decision to leave my mother's home to start a new life. But that caused me to end up homeless. During my adult years, there were many ups and downs. I suffered with severe depression and anxiety. I did stay at Mel Trotter Mission, had an apartment through the Dwelling Place Properties, and later on, I stayed at the Gateway Mission. I've received a lot of help from various agencies. I was assisted in getting Social Security benefits. I also had some problems with substance abuse, but have been clean for 5 months, and now I have stable housing here in Holland at Bay Point Apartments. Homelessness was and is the toughest journey anyone can take. I know from experience. As a community, we need to step up and step forward to give the best support and care for others going through the journey I have gone through. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? And would you please state your name and municipality for the record?
My name is Tom Beamish, and I'm a citizen of Holland, resident of Holland. During the extreme cold stretch that we had during mid-January of this year, I happened to run into one of our fellow local citizens during one of those unpleasant evenings. And we stopped to chat for a bit, and thankfully we were in an indoor facility at the time. He and I had spoken on several occasions before, and over the next 15 to 20 minutes, we covered a multitude of subjects, including local, state, national politics, local and national sports teams and events, and of course, being as cold and snowy and windy as it was, the weather. Through the course of our previous encounters, I'd gotten to know him a little bit, this fellow Hollander, college educated, rather quiet and reserved, a bit younger than myself and very thoughtful and knowledgeable about quite a wide range of subjects. At the conclusions of our previous discussions, I generally felt that I had gained some new insights into some of the topics we discussed and look forward to the next time we might encounter one another. That particular evening in January, due to the biting cold and wind, our discussion ultimately turned to the plight of those in our community who were unsheltered. We talked about the strengths of those, struggles of those without homes, the local options that were available for assistance, and what the future may hold for our unsheltered citizens. As we wound down our chat and prepared to go on with our respective evenings, my friend mentioned that it was time for him to go and claim a spot on the floor of the fellowship hall of the First United Methodist Church for the night. So while you may or may not have guessed that that was how my story was going to end, the reality for my friend is that all of his evenings end that way, looking for a safe spot to try to sleep for the night. I don't know the circumstances of his situation, and it's none of my business, but here he is, a fellow Holland citizen with no place to call home. Per the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development definition, the point-in-time count is the count of sheltered and unsheltered people experiencing homelessness on a single night in January. For Ottawa County, the PIT count for 2023 was 212. For 2024, it was 305. During the January cold snap, an average of 28 of our fellow Holland residents spent the night on the floor of the FUMC Fellowship Hall through the 5 nights that it was open as a warming center. The first night there were 16 in attendance, and the numbers increased to between 32 and 34 toward the end of that period. Our unsheltered citizens are our mothers, fathers, daughters, sons. They are, our family members, and they are our friends. They may exist in the shadows, but they love and they feel and they hurt as much as any of us. Through association as a volunteer with the Refresh Program partnership between First United Methodist Church and Community Action House, I've gotten to know many of our unsheltered citizens. They're not perfect, they don't claim to be. But one thing that I have observed many times is their generosity and their willingness to help. They don't have much, but what they do have, they're generally willing to share with others who may have even less. And again, I don't know the circumstances of their situations. It's none of my business, but I can say that we consider each other friends. We don't claim to have any surefire answers to solving the plight of the homeless, but doing nothing does no one any good. So here we are coming before you to ask that you consider the situation that our citizens in the shadows face every evening without a safe place to spend the night. And we ask that you give consideration to allowing or providing a year-round sheltered space where our family members and friends without homes can feel safe while they sleep, something that most of us take for granted. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? And would you please state your name and municipality for the record?
My name is Tim Wood. Excuse me. My body resides at 932 Village Court, 50 yards outside of the city of Holland in Allegan Township, or Laketown Township, sorry. Though I reside at that address, my heart is with those people in the city of Holland and beyond who don't have a name or a place to call their residence. We are, the only address that they have is 57 West 10th Street, which is the address for First United Methodist Church that we provide for them, for those who don't have an address, so they can receive mail and correspond with the various entities that they can get the resources they need. My wife Chris and I are passionate about supporting the affordable housing, and we've taken steps in our own personal way of reducing the rents in our rentals to below market rate, substantially below market rate. But that only helps 2 families. We would like to help more families. The First United Methodist Church, where we are members, has some available property on its campus, and we are dreaming about how we could provide safe, fixed, and secure housing and shelter for our friends at night. And not only that, but we're looking to offer a place for our friends during the day, a place where they can meet and really become a community and a community center there. While our friends are at Refresh, we're soliciting and enlisting their input and wisdom and insight into what their needs might be so that we could best meet them. We could provide something that we think might work, but it's completely irrelevant for them. It's not helpful. We would like to enlist other stakeholders as well as them in our brainstorming and implementation of this dream. The City of Holland, of which I work with a number of people and your staff, I appreciate. Various nonprofits, organizations, churches, Hope College, individuals, corporations, contractors, architects, developers, foundations, and whomever else might have a passion to address this need. The fulfillment of this long-term place where people can have a place to stay year-round and also a community center is not going to come to fruition in 2024. But we are fervently working to make this dream come true, and in 2024 hope to have some conceptual phase and some detailed planning that would then begin to work in 2025 and have something on the ground and on the property of First United Methodist Church. And thank you very much for all of your commitment to serving our community and citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time?
Hi, my name is Karen Howells, and I live in Holland in a condominium north of 32nd Street between Lincoln Avenue and US 31. I moved here 5 years ago. I do a lot of volunteering because it keeps me active. It also mostly keeps me out of trouble, and one meets the nicest people when volunteering. One of the things that I've learned from living in Holland and also other communities is that some of the most helpful programs are the best kept secrets. I think Refresh fits into that category. As you've already heard, we offer a welcoming space, a helpful hand, a listening ear, and so much more besides the food, the clothes, the showers, the haircuts, the counseling, and the outreach team that says whatever it takes, that's the kind of care you're going to get, and mailing addresses. Our community of helpers and those being helped come from all different stations, all different situations, all different beliefs, all different churches, and different walks of life, but we have learned to respect and to care for one another. Like many communities, Holland has a problem that concerns us all. Unfortunately, not all people have secure housing. Holland has resources that can be used to start to solve this concern, but it will take all of us helping all of us to keep all of us safe during the threatening weather. This past winter, when protection was needed because of the temperature reaching 0 degrees, many in Holland immediately stepped up. Refresh, First United Methodist Church, Hope Church, Herrick Library, Community Kitchen, Community Action House Outreach Team, Gateway Mission, the Holland Police Department, and Lifeline Ministries are a few of those. We were all involved making sure that all had the opportunity to get in out of the frigid wintry weather. That's why we were thinking that if all of us begin planning for winter 2024 now and do it now, we will be more prepared, we'll have more of the many bases covered, and we'll be able to offer a unified system whereby all people will feel comfortable. All will feel welcomed, and all will feel safe and sheltered. To that end, Jan Dirks has set up an email address which will help us all better communicate. And we hope that you will give us your information if you're interested in helping with us try to do something for this October, try to do something for all the years to come. The email address is moreshelterholland@gmail.com. No caps, all one word, moreshelterholland@gmail.com. In the next few weeks, hopefully in the next week, We will set up a meeting to tell what we have found in other communities. We've gone to Safe Harbor in Traverse City. There was a similar situation in Muncie, Indiana, where I came from. Lots of places have a situation where they are helping people have protected housing over the winter months. And we hope to have that in place, like I said, by October. If you're interested, we hope that you will contact us at moreshelterholland@gmail.com. Thank you for listening and for caring.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? And would you please state your name and municipality for the record?
My name is Bob Hamilton. I live in the city of Holland, and I'm here actually in two capacities tonight. One is as a commissioner on the Human Relations Commission, and one is as an individual resident. Speaking as a commissioner, I just want to thank you all for the support that you give to the Human Relations Commission in its mission to promote diversity, equity, inclusion, and access in education, employment, and public service. In particular, we would like to recognize and acknowledge efforts that are ongoing by Holland City planners to work with nonprofit organizations and churches to help build and promote mixed housing opportunities at all price points in the city of Holland. I believe that these efforts are made possible in part, at least by a grant from HUD to the Fair Housing Commission of West Michigan. Second, we just want to remind you of opportunities, or I should say activities, that the city sponsors that are coming up in the next couple of months. First on the list is a session organized by Dwelling Space called Be Housing Informed, which is a cohort of 5 classes designed for 12 to 15 individuals to get together, tell their stories as landlords, tenants, perhaps homeless people can be involved in that cohort, and come up with data to help deal with, and programs that help deal with affordable housing, which is part of the homeless problem, in my opinion. Second, Juneteenth is coming up, the Freedom Festival and Market organized by IM Academy on June 15th. Holland Pride Festival is coming out on June 29, organized by Out on the Lakeshore, and Fiesta, organized by Latin Americans United for Progress, is on July 15th through 21. And we appreciate your support of those activities and invite you all to attend. Speaking as a private citizen, I think this city has an opportunity to provide more bicycle-friendly transportation space. I don't know exactly what that would look like. I don't think it's possible to totally separate bicycles and automobiles from the same place, but I have read of programs in other cities where cities have created what I'm just going to refer to as bicycle thoroughfares, streets that are preferred for bicycles to use. It increases the number of bicycles on those streets, which then makes the streets safer because the drivers using those streets are more accustomed to seeing bicycles. There's more bicyclists out there, and so they're more alert to them. So I just think there's opportunities here for that, and I would encourage you to look into those opportunities on top of all the other pressing problems that you're working with. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? And would you please state your name and municipality for the record?
Terry DeYoung. I live in the city of Holland, and I'm also a member of the Human Relations Commission. And I'm here to say, to empathize with those we have heard from this evening about the problem with lack of housing, lack of affordable housing, and agree that that's a concern that warrants our city's deep attention. I'm also here to say thank you for the City of Holland's support for a project composed of a three-story apartment building near Collin Park and a two-story apartment building on 10th and Pine. By now, I'm guessing that all of you have heard the good news that funding was granted recently, last week in fact, for 52 apartments and townhomes near Collin Park and downtown Holland. These will provide high-quality, sustainable, inclusive housing to low-income individuals and families. The properties are currently owned by Community Action House, the City of Holland, and Hope Church, RCA, and those will now be secured and managed by Dwelling Place, thanks to a collaboration of those four partners, plus the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians. 11 units will be set aside for adults with disabilities, 11 more for members or descendants of tribal nations, 8 for individuals or families with tenant-based vouchers, and 8 for project-based vouchers from the Grand Rapids Housing Commission for individuals or families with low or extremely low income. I am also a member of Hope Church across the street, and 2 summers ago I was among those who were urging you to vote yes on rezoning requests and the payment in lieu of taxes exemption that were necessary for a prior iteration of this undertaking that then included property owned by First United Methodist Church. In time, First United Methodist stepped away from this project, and Community Action House, the City of Holland, and the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians joined with Hope Church and Dwelling Place. And after 7 years of work, people at Hope Church are thrilled that this project is moving forward. We believe it reflects a genuine commitment for a thriving community that includes everyone. And I know that a thriving community that includes everyone is at the heart of the work that people here in City Hall are invested in, from City Council to staff, all the way down to those of us on the Human Relations Commission. So again, thank you, City Council, thank you, staff, for your commitment and support to a thriving community that includes everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? Would you please state your name and municipality for the record?
Ann Henriksen, Zealand. Tomorrow is our last event for Faith Month, declared by the mayor, and it is the National Day of Prayer at the Civic Center. And we have the privilege tomorrow of you who would attend being greeted by the Compassionate Heart special needs adults, and their parents will be there to welcome you. Their building is right across the street from me, Donna Bunce, and she was nominated for the Human Relations Commission's award. Has two times, has never gotten it. The other thing is there were 2 others nominated that kind of fit in with the other speakers. And this is First Reformed Church. One of their projects is Wood Springs. And they were kind enough to give that ministry a room, took the beds out, put a full refrigerator in there for people who have been evicted, who are working. Their whole paycheck goes to that monthly rent. And Wood Springs is in there to help them with their children. They have families living there, actually. They've also been nominated twice to the Human Relations Commission. A third one is one of the editors. She would send in editorials. It was Janet Weisninger. And she just passed away at 89 years old. And she would bring her faith to the paper, and many people read it and were so delighted. I was one. She was nominated to the Human Relations Commission. My concern is that National Faith Month is not honored by that commission. Social justice is one thing, and I appreciate everything that is said there. I met a homeless man in the park this week. We were in the park to pray and talk to people, welcoming them here. Many are open for prayer. This young man Corey was his name, and he sat down, very intelligent, homeless. And that was his big concern, is we need help. It isn't my choice. It is something that I am in at this point and need help. So I support what they've said as well. Support the faith that is here in Holland also. No donations are made to Faith Month, but they are to Juneteenth. They are to the June Pride Festival, and they're also Dr. Martin Luther King, who is more than an activist. He is a preacher of the gospel. So I want you to consider all of this, research your ordinance, and see where you need to tweak this so that all are welcome here in Holland.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? Seeing none, I will close the public comment period. Next item on the agenda, special order of the day, public hearings. We have a number of them. The first is with Community and Neighborhood Services, a PA 198 tax abatement application from HG Medical USA LLC. Mr. Van Beek.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr.
Just
Corbin.
for the record, Madam Clerk, if we could, Councilman Raymond has arrived at 6:24 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Corbin. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Two items on the consent agenda, just as a reminder of the process that we use. When we get to the point of considering a PA 198 tax abatement, there's actually 3 steps that we take. The first is that we receive an application, we consider a report. The second is that you set a public hearing. We always put both of those items on the consent agenda. And then you have the third item when you actually hear about the project proposed, both from staff, from Lakeshore Advantage quite often, but then also from the company. And then we have a public hearing. So that, with the public hearing, but also otherwise, is always the final step of that 3-phase process that comes before us tonight. So I'm going to ask Mark Myers, our Director of Community and Neighborhood Services, which also oversees economic development, to introduce this topic to us tonight of HG Medical USA. Welcome, Mark. Thanks.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Mayor and Council. At a recent budget work session, I mentioned that we have several exciting expansions in the industrial sector, and tonight is a great example of one of those. I'm pleased to present on this request from HG Medical USA for a tax abatement on a new facility. HG Medical is headquartered in West Virginia, and they've searched several states and chosen the state of Michigan and our fair city to expand their North American manufacturing capability. They are a medical device company manufacturing orthopedic implants. This project includes $3 million in real property investment in an existing 100,000 square foot space in the tech center located at 701 South Waverly. When you consider the personal property and the equipment, the investment actually increases to almost $41 million, so very significant investment. Importantly, the estimated new jobs being created by this new facility is 130 within approximately 2 years. I'll also mention, related to that the state of Michigan has provided a performance grant to the company. Those grants are tied to job creation, so you should know that There's incentive to create those jobs beyond just the tax abatement. The state pays those grants based on the jobs that are created over a period of time. Also, I want to note that they have a 10-year lease, and so staff is recommending a term of the abatement as 10 years as opposed to the maximum 12 years allowed by statute. State Treasury's direction is that these be granted based on the term of the lease. However, having said that, the company can come back if they renew their lease for an additional 2 years and get an extension. So with that, those are the general facts. I'll open it up to questions. I also will note, as Keith did, that we have representatives from Lakeshore Advantage who helped land this company, if you will, and they also helped prepare the tax abatement application. And then, of course, we have representatives from HG Medical USA who can also answer any questions that you have.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Questions from council? All right. I
must have
actually,
answered them all.
I know it's in the report. I know it's in the report. You said 130 jobs. I just like the public who may not be able to read the very small print that we've got on the screens in front of us. Can you go through the different types of jobs and what the pay scale is going to be for those? Just so
Yes.
that the public has an opportunity to be able to hear that, to know what kind of jobs those 130 jobs are.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd be happy to do that. Managerial, technical, clerical, and also operators are skilled labor, semi-skilled labor. And those wage rates range from $20 per hour to $37 per hour.
Okay. And I guess I've got one other question. What type of, I'm just curious, what type of medical equipment are they going to be manufacturing? We've got if you can't, I'm sure there's somebody itching
I could,
behind you.
but not as well as the company
All right.
representatives.
I just love to hear it.
I'm going to defer to them.
Great, thank you.
Hello, Council.
Good evening. And would you please state your name and municipality for the record?
Yeah, my name's Dan Kahn, and I live in Lowell, Michigan, but I'm the general manager of HG Medical USA for the Holland site. I'm the only employee currently.
So you're sitting in that big factory, and the
It-
desk
it's-
in the middle of the
it's a
factory floor with a light bulb up above your
Very
head.
large office.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. We make bone plates and bone screws. Currently, we make those in Reisting, Germany, as well as West Virginia. So West Virginia is our United States site, USA LLC. So we'll be doing those same items because it's easier to validate and bring them over into market quicker. So already creating that site and already have machines on order and coming in.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions from council members? Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. This is an item that we need to do a public hearing on. If you made a comment at the open public comment period, you may also make a comment during each of these on this item. Oh, you want me to just make that clear, do you, Mr. Van Beek, that they can only comment on this particular item, which is actually very true. I was about to say that. You may make a public comment on this particular agenda item, but you may, for each public hearing that we have, if you would like to make a comment on each one of those items, you may do that as well. So at this time, I will open this up to public comment. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address council on this particular issue? Seeing none, I will close the public comment period. What is the pleasure of council in regard to item 7A?
Move to approve.
Is moved by Sol. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Byrd. Any discussion? Seeing none, Brenda, would you please call the roll?
Freeman.
Yes.
Raymond.
Yes.
Corbin.
Yes.
Soul.
Yes.
Shay.
Yes.
Schulteis.
Yes.
Bird. Yes. Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Item 7B, Community and Neighborhood Services. This is always one of my favorite agenda items every year because I like to hear people try to say CDBG without saying CBGBs. And it is the Community Development Block Grant 2024-2025 Annual Action Plan. Mr. Van Beek.
I don't know how I follow that. I don't think I've ever had that problem, but now if I ever say it, I'm going to blame you, Mr. Mayor. We'll ask Mark if he's ever had that problem when we ask him up here in a second, too. In fact, Mark, why don't you start heading up? And I have the clicker here for you, so I'll let you drive instead of you can walk over and get that. So the CDBG program, the Community Development Block Grant Program, is a federal program. Mark, in a moment, is going to go through a slide that he even talks about how long it's been in place and what it, the amount of funding that it represents to the city. Even with some of the conversations and the mentions that we had tonight, there are certain things in our federal form of and republic form of government where there's certain things that are under the auspices of federal government, state government, and other local governments like the county. And there's other things that are not in our purview and things that we, quite frankly, don't have money that we can spend on. CDBG funding is one of those sources of funding that comes through the federal government to us that, while relatively small, are things that we can spend on things in human services that we can't in other ways. So maybe a little bit fitting, but probably narrowing too, in the sense that what Mark is going to do is present how we go through this process every year. It's an annual action plan, and how there's input with Neighborhood Improvement Committee and others. So Mark, I will stop talking now, otherwise I'll take all your good information away. But thanks again for your work managing this program and with those that give input towards it.
Thanks, Keith. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Happy to be here tonight. Thanks for taking some time for this. So yeah, that was a great introduction. A lot of the points that I was perhaps going to make, I might amend some of my comments a bit because Keith covered that. But I did add, ordinarily I kind of... Ordinarily, I jump right into the plan, but I did add a couple of slides because I know there are some newer members that are lesser initiated to the CDBG program, and it does roll off your tongue if you say it like 60, 70 times, but it takes a while to get to that point. But the Community Development Block Grant Program is a federal program, as I think Keith may have said, comes to us through the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Sometimes it's referred to as an entitlement grant because it's as though cities of a certain size, of a certain population, and certain levels of poverty are entitled to the money should they choose to apply for it. And we have applied for it since 1989. And I just noted there on that bullet that we as a community have received just shy of $12.5 million over those 35 years that we've been receiving this grant. And it happens to be the 50th anniversary of the CDBG program. It was initiated by Congress in 1975. And because it's kind of an old, it's been around a while, some of the language that HUD uses feels a little bit dated. So that next bullet talks about the primary objective having remained unchanged since 1975, which is the development of viable urban communities. What happened in 1975, just very briefly, is about 8 different federal programs were kind of lumped into one, forming the Community Development Block Grant. And so a lot of that language around urban renewal and that sort of thing that was maybe more familiar in the 70s kind of got rolled into the grant. But the 3 key things that the grant is trying to accomplish is achievement of decent housing, decent and safe housing, suitable living environments, which is kind of HUD language for the neighborhood conditions, and expanded opportunities, principally benefiting persons of low to moderate income. And I can define any of these items, including the income criteria, should you want to hear more about that. Citizen participation is a critical or an important function of or component of the grant. For us to apply annually and submit our plan, we need to demonstrate that we've gone out and made a reasonable effort to obtain citizen input, and I can talk more about that. Just to give you a glimpse of some of the eligible activities that HUD does allow communities to use this money for. This is not an exhaustive list. HUD lumps them into these 5 categories. So in the category of housing, nearly every municipal recipient of this grant nationwide uses a large chunk of their funds, as do we, for homeowner rehabilitation. So low to moderate income homeowners, they're experiencing a significant mechanical problem with a furnace or a roof problem or a sewer connection, they can come to us and seek financial assistance with that repair. Homeownership assistance is a program that we operate. I'll say a bit more of that in a bit. There's some things that we do not use the monies for: relocation and demolition, code enforcement. Under the category of public facilities, while these aren't in our plan for this coming year, we have used these funds in the past for some sidewalk installation, some park improvements. Most recently, we put a little bit of CDBG money into the improvements at Moran Park. Going back to 2013-14, CDBG made some contributions to the Bouse Pool redevelopment. Public services, maybe better known as social services or human services. HUD does allow recipients to use only up to 15% of their funding, which Keith was referring to. That's one of the areas where we do have dollars available to contribute to local human services. And for the last 2 years, and the proposal for the year ahead is to focus on assisting a couple of different homeless assistance agencies. Economic development is another category. We've not historically put money into economic development, and that's typical nationwide as well. That's the least commonly used type of program for CDBG funds. And then finally, we're allowed to use up to 20% of our grant amount for program administration and for fair housing activities. So on to this year's plan. It was developed reviewing data from, relevant data related to demographics and past performance of programs that we've operated in the past, and certainly from the input that received from the residents and key stakeholders. The main intent of the plan is to address prioritized needs, prioritized community development needs within the city as we've come to know them, to remain aligned with our 5-year plan. So each 1-year plan is kind of nested within a 5-year consolidated plan. We last adopted a consolidated plan in 2020, so next year, right about this time, I'll be coming to you asking for approval of a bit more of a robust plan, which will be a 5-year plan, and the first year of that 5-year plan. And then, of course, we need to make sure that we're adhering to all CDBG program rules and regulations, of which there are many. Let's see. The contents of the plan, it's not a terribly lengthy plan. It's just 30, 40 pages, but it includes a description of the consultation process that we use to gather local input. It includes the numbers, the financial resources that are being made available to us. And just parenthetically on that point, we don't know our final allocation. Typically, by the time I come to you, we know that number. So I've built a spending plan that's based on an estimate. And HUD allows for that to happen. HUD allows for us to go out for public comment, knowing that it's based on an estimate. And I just had to be clear in our public information materials where we will make adjustments when that final number comes in. But more than likely, the estimate that I built the budget around, $325,000, will be within $10,000 or so of our final number. But the plan also includes a listing of the plan projects, goals, and objectives, and we'll look at more detail at that in just a second. And then it also has some sections toward the back of the plan that just pertain to how the city is thinking about some of these adjacent community development issues, like poverty reduction, homelessness, and housing affordability. And then just very briefly, before we get into the spending, the public engagement summary, or what we've gone, how we've achieved meeting HUD's expectations in this regard. Very typical to how we've done it in the past. I held 2 community input meetings back in December, one during the daytime, one during the evening, trying to make it possible for the public to make it to one of those meetings and talk about what they're seeing in their neighborhoods, where they view the greatest needs. The Neighborhood Improvement Committee then took that information, discussed it, and use that to give kind of me guidance on the formation of the plan. The Neighborhood Improvement Committee did approve this draft plan in March, and then they are recommending your approval tonight. It did go out for another 30 days of public comment between March 28 and April 30, and then before your vote tonight, we'll hold one more public hearing. The only public comment that's been received to date came through those meetings back in December. And I can summarize that input if you would like to hear that. So as far as the plans, kind of the heart of the plan, how we envision spending the money or how we'd like to plan to spend the money in the next calendar year, it's pretty much a status quo plan with possible exception of we don't have money this year available for any infrastructure projects. We put an estimate of that into our 5-year plan, and we've essentially spent that out. So, but the rest of what's listed here are programs that we're currently operating in this current program year. So our home repair program is the biggest chunk of the funding. Home ownership assistance is a partnership we have with Lakeshore Habitat for Humanity, and it's not a big number, but that's the number they need to kind of finish out the 36th Street project. So we have a fair amount of money, or at least we have enough money with the addition of this $13,000 to assist every of their home buyers that are coming under that 36th Street project. And then under that public service category where we're allowed to spend up to 15%, we're proposing to spend those two amounts, the same amount, for 2 projects, one that Community Action House, their homeless outreach program, and a housing stabilization program operated by Good Samaritan. And parenthetically, those dollars don't just meet the needs of the persons that those programs are serving, but they also serve a purpose of meeting a match requirement that MISTA, both those projects are largely funded by the Michigan State Housing Development Authority, and they expect a certain amount of local match. So our dollars contribute to that need of helping those organizations meet that local match. And then the last two, or the next 2 lines, fall under the administrative cap, the 20% cap for administration. So it's the partnership we have with the Fair Housing Center of West Michigan, which we have had that partnership with them, I shouldn't even guess, but well beyond 10, 12, 15 years. And then again, mostly my time is accounted for and covered through those program administration dollars. And again, that's an estimate. If that number comes in, if the total number comes in much below 310,000, I may need to make some other adjustments, but otherwise that number will be adjusted solely from the home repair program total. So all the other numbers should remain the same. I do have one more slide just to show you a couple pictures of some roofs that were replaced and repaired in the last couple of years. So other than that, I'd welcome any questions.
Great. Questions for staff? Mr. Freeman.
Mark, thanks for all your work and what you're doing. In lieu of all the different public comment that we heard this evening, this board does not build houses, correct?
This board meaning?
What you're presenting tonight and the money that we're approving.
Right. In fact,
does not build homes.
I could have clarified that. The CDBG actually makes it very, we're not permitted to spend money on new construction. CDBG dollars can be used around the periphery of new construction. For instance, the 36th Street project, before that got up and running, we were hoping to use some CDBG dollars to do some site improvements while that property was still under city ownership, which is the key. We can improve city-owned infrastructure. We can't use these funds. That's not true of all programs and funds, but for these funds in particular, we could not just contribute financial resources for a new construction project.
Sure. I think just thanks for the clarity of just perspective of where funding and whose priorities and who can build homes and things like that. So thanks for your work.
Other questions for staff? Mr. Corbin?
Yes, thank you. Can you define, just for the listening public, low to moderate income again?
Sure, yep. So the area median income for the city of Holland, those new numbers just came out literally a couple days ago and they took effect today. HUD updates those annually. So the median family income, which means there's half of the households have an income below that and half of the households have an income above that. So it's not the average, it's the median. The median, which is what HUD uses as their basis, the median household income in Holland, or the Holland metro area, for a family of 4 is just a hair over, well, it's $102,000, $102,800. We're permitted to serve households at less than 80% of that number. So the example for that household of 4 would be below $82,250. Now, in most cases, we're assisting households well below that, but that's the highest we can go. So our public service partnerships, they are typically serving people in the 0 to 30% of area median, so very, very low incomes. Our average for our home repair program is a little bit higher. We try to market as much as we can to those lowest income households, but we're probably serving households in that, on average, in that 60 to 80% area median. There's just more households with that income range that are homeowners than in that, say, 0 to 30% range. So I gave you the family of 4 number. That's kind of the middle ground. But that number keeps going up. The median number strikes some people as I don't know, strikes me sometimes as high.
Yep. Ms. Soul and then Mr. Byrd.
Thanks, Mark. So again, so the typical average you're saying for, because I'm familiar with the AMI for like 30%, 40%, 50%, and that's a national average, but you're saying here in this western region of Michigan, is it pretty high? I mean, 100 and, what did you say? For a family of 4?
102,800 for a family of 4. That's the median family income as updated and effective today.
Okay, so typically, I mean, if you're qualifying, you're under that by very much. I mean, you have to be way under, you're saying 82%.
Well, the example I gave for the family of 4 would be the maximum income for any of these programs would be 80% of that 102,000, so 82,250.
So generally, I mean, like people on fixed incomes would qualify, perhaps,
yes.
Depending on, you know.
For sure.
I mean,
Yep.
for that much,
Easily
because that
qualify.
seems high, so I'm just saying,
yeah.
like, for our constituents that don't know are on fixed incomes or whatnot, you know, there are these resources through CBDG for, if they are a homeowner that can help them.
Yeah, I'm glad you're pointing that out. We want to get the word out as much as possible about that program. We think it's generally well utilized. We have different ways of getting that word out when we know that households are experiencing some sort of a repair emergency. But yeah, the more information out there, the better.
No, that's great. I appreciate it, and I just wanted to reiterate it. It's for, you know, we know there's the elderly, widow, single parents, you know, and just, you know, people in different circumstances, as we just heard Refresh Group speaking to that. And then you were talking about, so home ownership, that helps entitle people that are becoming first-time homeowners.
Yeah.
That program that you're saying is 13,000 allocated to?
Correct.
That's helping them.
That's going to assist 2 households at $6,500 towards closing costs and down payment. So
Okay. And are we also collaborating, or are they able to collaborate with, I know Community Action House, and we partner with Community Action House, and they have a homeowners or people that are qualifying for Habitat for Humanity. Are these programs similar, or are they like on their own? I'm just wondering.
So we've chosen to partner specifically with Lakeshore Habitat, but they're
Okay.
the only organization other than Jubilee Ministries, which works with a slightly higher income range. Habitat for Humanity works generally with people up to 50% of area median. Not a lot of other home ownership opportunities outside of Lakeshore Habitat for folks with those income ranges. But so we view them as the most logical partner for that effort.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the partnership. Again, like I think it was mentioned earlier, it takes all of us to help all of us and being a part, you know, every entity working together. So, and then the last question I had, the community action housing homeless or assisting homelessness, does that cover the program at Refresh as well? I mean, because Community Action House is part of Refresh.
Right.
And then we help Community Action House, so then we're kind of partnered in there through the CBDG with outreach workers or
Yep, we're specifically
programming?
funding their outreach program, and as I think you know, those folks are positioned throughout the community, at Refresh, at the library. So in essence, I think the answer is yes. We're not supporting a particular person, we're supporting the program.
And I just want to say that because
And
we
it's-
had people speaking to that
Right,
in
right.
Holland, we don't provide housing, but we provide we
Correct.
support services that support these programs such as Refresh that
Right.
are helping that community of unhoused constituents,
Yep.
going through a hard time. So the city, here at the City of Holland, through CBDG, we are, if I'm saying that right, did I say it right?
Yep, I think you got it.
Now I'm worried
Mhm.
that we are helping them,
Yep.
so thank you. I appreciate your information and all you do.
Mr. Byrd?
Yes, so you gave some numbers, right? And then you gave some percentages. So you said 104 was at the top, the median, correct?
For a family of four.
Right, and
Yep.
so 82 was the max that the city could help with, right?
That's the maximum income for a family that's benefiting from any CDBG program.
Okay. My question is, well, so you stated the majority of the people that are helped are well below that, right?
For sure.
You
for
said
the-
something to that.
Yeah, for certain for those public service programs, the Good Samaritan customers, the outreach workers, clientele, the Habitat for Humanity clientele, those are all almost 100% well below 50 or 30% of area median.
Okay, so what I'm going to ask is that, so you gave those percentages, and you gave the percentages for the other ones too. Wondering, for that percent that we do help, could you put an approximate dollar amount on that? I think that will help everyone get the big picture in a sense, right?
Yep.
It kind of puts that period on the end. Some people can't relate so much to the percentages.
Right. So let's say for the Habitat for Humanity folks, those folks are probably right up against that 50% of area median number. So that would be, in that case, that would be around 51,000 for a family of four. So less for a family of one, more for a family of 8, but 51,000 for a family of four. The folks that are being assisted through Community Action House or Good Samaritan, they are probably mostly kind of in that 30% of area median number, which would be around $31,000 per year on average. That's a rougher number. The Habitat number is probably a little bit more predictable. And then again, finally, the folks that we're assisting as a city with our home repair program, they're going to be all over the map, but somewhere in that 20 to 80% of area median. So, yeah, and leaning to be forthright, leaning more towards those higher income because that's where the homeowners are, right? There aren't as many. There are more homeowners in that 70 to 80% of area median range, as there way more than there are in that 20 to 30% range. That's just the reality. But there are some. In fact, I met with an individual 2 days ago who's probably in that under 30% range, person living off of Social Security, very limited income, homeowner, facing a furnace problem. So they're definitely out there, and those are the folks that we'd really like to make sure we're assisting. And then for those folks, we're assisting at a much higher level. So for, let's say, a roof project for somebody at that lowest income level, we're contributing up to 90% of the project cost. For that person who's closer to 70 to 80% of the area median, we're helping with no more than 50% of the project cost. So we're contributing more, we're investing more in the lower income households.
Great, thank you very, very much. I think that so I said a period, right? That like puts a period at it. Actually, I think that puts an exclamation point on it. That allows people to, we understand better in dollars and cents, right? And when you hear dollars and cents in the capacity that you just presented, I think it really elevates what we're doing, the need that's out there with everything that's going up. It seems like go to bed tomorrow or tonight, wake up in the morning, everything that we purchase is 2% more, right? So I say 2% more after I say dollars and cents. So, but you know, with the cost and the price of things going up, I think it's even, these CBDG dollars are even more valuable. Valuable now. So, thank you for sharing that.
Great. Any other questions for staff? Mr. Shea.
Sorry, Shadow just gave me some love, and I'm like just distracted by it. Yeah, what kind of things are in place to, I don't want to say advertise, but to get the word out for? Is it mostly people that are coming in for looking for assistance, or
For the home repair program in particular?
Yeah.
Well, one way is anytime an individual is cited for a code enforcement issue, our staff are letting them know of this particular program. So a roof is failing.
That was really my second part to that question. That's great.
Something that's approaching a dangerous structure
Sure.
or a roof issue, they're letting them know that that's an issue for the city, but they're also saying there's a program to help.
Awesome.
We also, a lot of our contractors, the gentleman I mentioned a bit ago, he was notified of our program through a furnace contractor.
Awesome.
So, and then our neighborhood organization, certainly, we're pushing the information out to them, giving them flyers periodically, making sure they've got those. Yeah, it'll be on the city newsletter at least once a year.
I think it's great that, yeah, if people are cited, then that's, for a danger, that's the key. That's awesome. So thank you for all your work, Mark. That's great.
Any other questions for staff? Great. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. This is also an item that requires a public hearing. So at this time, I will open a public hearing. Any member of the public who would like to address council in regard to this particular agenda item, this is your opportunity. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. What is the pleasure of council in regard to item 7B?
Move to approve the community development block program.
Moved by Vreeman. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Byrd. Any discussion? Seeing none. Brenda, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Raymond? Yes. Corbin? Yes. Soul?
Yes.
Shea?
Yes.
Schulteis?
Yes.
Byrd?
Yes.
Freeman?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda, item 7C, Holland Energy Fund Fiscal Year 2025 Budget. Mr. Van Beek.
Mr. Mayor, council, members of the public, we have two items, and I'm going to kind of introduce both of them momentarily here for a second, just for context. And I think it's important where if someone's here publicly tonight or maybe watching at home, what you may not see is the amount of work and time and conversation that has gone into the items that we're about to have a public hearing on, and then recommended action that we hope that you take tonight. And sometimes we have long conversations on certain things, right? Or we hear from people on certain things, and then we're adopting, multi-million dollar budgets in our city tonight. We have made lots of presentations on this, so while staff is about to give you some information, just be assured that if we're going relatively quick, or if you think, oh, wow, please, we'll share with you places where you can get no shortage of information and videos and budgets and briefs and executive summaries, or hundreds and hundreds of pages of budget documents and the like. So I always like to say that, right, because we get to this point in time, and quite frankly, for all of us here at the dais and probably most of the people in the audience, we've talked about this a lot, and you've seen these presentations a lot. So I just like to make sure that everyone's aware that if we go somewhat quickly, it's not that we're not aware of the information or taking it seriously. It's really that we've seen it many, many times already before this point. I also very clearly want to extend my thanks to everyone who has prepared all this information and spent all the time on that. And quite frankly, it starts with our staff. that do, I believe, a fantastic job of managing money. That's the public's money each and every day. That we make sure that we stay below budget, and that we make that money go a long way in providing what I think are fantastic services. But then also every year, kind of scrubbing back and saying, okay, we're starting the budget process. Let's really take a look at what we think, where we can continue to be frugal with money and yet make that money go a long way. You had items on your consent agenda tonight where there were things that were budgeted for a long time that we brought in under budget, in one case pretty significantly under budget, because we just looked at a way to do a hoist a different way. So thank you to all those staff, particularly thank you to Lynn and our finance staff for a fantastic job in putting all these documents together, and by extension also Dave Koster and his staff, finance staff and others that feed into this. We are going to start first with just the Holland Energy Fund budget, and then we'll have a public hearing on that, and then a recommended action on that, and then our full budget. So Lynn, why don't you come up and I'll let you take lead on both of those two items. And thank you very much. And thank you also to council for sitting through a whole bunch of budget nights, and council sitting through our department videos. We try to give you good information, and hopefully we hit the mark for you again this year.
Good evening, Mayor Box and members of City Council. Tonight we're going to start with the Holland Energy Fund budget. And the Holland Energy Fund is a 501c3 entity that was formed to provide energy efficiency initiatives for residents of the city. In fact, if you haven't already heard about it, I would encourage you to, anybody listening, to check it out online. We have a program right now we're working on called Home Energy 101, and we really reach a lot of households with this, providing energy efficiencies, and you get a box of goodies for free, and you get somebody out to come help you inspect your house to see where you can make some improvements. We partner with local nonprofits to do this, to reach more people, so it's really a great program. So staff from the city and staff from the Board of Public Works work together on this initiative, and so it's really a great program. So we do a budget because it is a 501c3 entity, and the budget actually is included with the city's overall budget, which will follow the next presentation, but we do one separate for here. So for fiscal year 25, the budgeted revenues are $315,000. The budgeted expenditures are $397,335. And obviously there's more expenses than revenues, so we have a planned use of reserves of $82,335. And really we have that because we didn't spend all the money we had planned to spend in the current year, and that's why it's kind of rolled forward to under expenditures for the following year. So what makes up those revenues? The revenues primarily come from a transfer from the city and the Board of Public Works. We do earn a little bit of interest income, and we have some loans outstanding that we've loaned residents in the past, and we earn a little bit of interest on that as well. So looking closer at the expenditures for this program, the most significant amount is spent on our home energy program, and that's $246,235. And you can see under the bullet on the slide, the programs we have are Home Energy 101, which we currently have in place, but we're working on some new extensions of our programming, and one of those would be Home Energy 201. It's some additional measures for homes, personal residences, and then we're looking at a Business Energy 101. And again, these all will provide energy initiatives that will help the community energy plan achieve its goals. And the business energy is going to be more focused towards the smaller businesses that don't have the resources to necessarily have a lot of initiatives themselves. So other money we have budgeted is $134,000 for the community energy plan, and this is a placeholder for initiatives that extend out of the community energy plan. And finally, we run this program with just $16,900 of administrative costs because the city and the Board of Public Works primarily donate the staffing resources. So that's good to have just a little bit of money spent on administrative. So this was presented to the Holland Energy Fund Board at their March 20th meeting, who recommended approval and inclusion with the city's overall budget. I'd be happy to answer any other questions. And again, I really encourage everybody listening to check out the programs online. There's some great videos of what you can get. You get a cute little box that you can make a house out of. So there's a lot of fun stuff there. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for staff? I just have a comment. If you ever get out of the finance realm, you would be really good at marketing. So that's, and kudos to the home energy program, because this is a program that in recent years had been languishing a bit, and there were funds that were not being used. And with the revamping into Home Energy 101, I think we've seen a pretty significant increase in the community involvement in this. And I love the idea that you're adding 201, and as a small business owner, Business Energy 101, I'm really looking forward to as well. So great job to everybody that's involved in that.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions or comments for staff? Great. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, she's never going to get out of
finance. You're not going to let her out of
work.
finance,
No,
are you?
no. So stop encouraging her.
Be a killer, Mark. You could build a little house out of it.
No,
Yeah, it'd be
no.
great. All right. This does also require a public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing. Is there any member of the public who would like to address council in regard to this particular item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. What is the pleasure of council in regard to item 7C?
Motion to approve 7 Charlie as presented.
Moved by Schulteis. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Byrd. Any discussion? Seeing none. Brenda, would you please call the roll?
Corbin.
Yes.
Soul.
Yes.
Shay.
Yes.
Schulteis.
Yes.
Byrd.
Yes.
Freeman.
Yes.
Raymond.
Yes.
And Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda, item 7D, Finance, Fiscal Year 2025 City Budget. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, so Lynn McCammon is going to again walk us through these finances, and at some point she's going to hand it over to our general manager of the Holland Board of Public Works, Dave Koster, as what we're recommending to you is adopting not only the budget, but the millage rate and also utility rates. So thank you once again, Lynn.
Good evening again. So just to illustrate what Keith was talking about, so here is the 461-page budget, and it is a complete budget. It has a lot of great information, and it's available online. It's available at the library for public inspection or at City Hall. So yes, that's a lot of information, a lot of great information, and we can go through some of that. But I will point out as I talk about some of the items tonight where you can find the information. So more importantly is here is an 8-page document that is also available online, and this is called a budget in brief. And it's great because we try to take all of the information from here and highlight what's really important so people can understand how our city is really working from a financial point of view and what's included in the budget. So tonight I'm going to highlight some of the budget, and I want to start with just a quick introduction of, so this budget includes all the city operations and all of the Holland Board of Public Works information consolidated. And some of the first charts we're going to look at are related for both the combined entities. Then I'm going to talk a little bit more about the city's general fund and the city operations and highlight some capital project information. And then, yes, Dave's going to come up, Dave Koster's going to come up and provide some useful information about the utilities that are managed by the Holland Board of Public Works. So to begin with, we have a look, again, this is the combined entity, and as we can see, the total sources and total uses budgeted for the combined entity is $233.8 million. So the chart on here, we like to look at how where the money comes from to operate the city and the board. So we can see the largest source is charges for services at 68.3%, and what that really is comprised mostly of is the utility services. So that's considered charges for services. We do see taxes and assessments at 12.9%, and that generally funds the general city government. On the uses side, we look at it how it's being spent and kind of by the funds, and we see again, no surprise, the utility funds is 56.1% of that. So that is representative of the combined entity because that is a fairly significant part of the operation. So then I want to move to another important thing, and that is the general fund revenues. And it's important because the general fund is the major operating fund of the city. And where do we get a large part, in fact, over 40% of our revenue for that comes from taxes. So again, we look at it closely to make sure we're being good stewards of those residents' resources. But the first chart I want to highlight is just because my department, we receive the tax bills, so I want to just make it clear. So when somebody pays their tax bills, they might come in and pay $1,000. Well, we don't get to keep all that money. We actually, at the city, have to take everybody's money for the schools, the county, the library, the pool, any taxing district, and we process it and send them their money, and then we get to keep our share. So I just like to always point out, the city actually is only about 32.6% of the tax dollars that you do pay. And as you can see then, that provides about $15.2 million for the city operations. And if you look in the budget brief online, you'll see kind of some of the things we do with those property taxes, which I'll talk about on the next slide. And it's getting kind of small, but what the next slide illustrates is where do some of those dollars go? And again, the largest part at 48% is public safety. So we have a safe community. We have fire protection with that and police protection. And that is a big part of the budget. We also have 18% that goes towards parks. We have we're very fortunate to have a lot of nice parks in the city. And we have just general citywide support, which covers a lot of different administrative functions at about 20%. So again, in the full budget, you can get a lot of information on what each department is doing and how much money each department is spending. But this overall just gives a brief idea where some of that money is being spent. And another thing I like to point out is when you look at the chart, it looks like the downtown group that's managed by Matt is only like less than 1%. But that's because the downtown group gets a lot of their funding and spends a lot of money from other funds, not just the general fund. So that's why that looks so small, even though we do have a significant amount of resources that goes into our downtown. All right, then here is another thing. So as part of the whole budget process, we work with the folks who manage the capital projects, whether it be streets or Matt with the municipal capital, and even with the Board of Public Works. This chart combines all of those different capital expenditure requirements. And we actually put the first 5 years, but we look at it at a 10-year point of view, and we combine it with the whole financial forecast to make sure that anything that's being requested from a capital needs, we actually can fund that. So it'd be nice to know we can pay for it, and we do that. And again, that whole complete financial forecast is in the larger budget if anybody is interested. And we've presented that to this group already. But you can see here in the 5-year capital plan, we have a combined total of over $88 million for the first fiscal year that is being budgeted. But if you look at all 5 years, it's actually over $300 million. So there's a lot of great investment in the community, and we can see some of those things. We've had the groundbreaking last week for the ice rink. That's included in here. We have 2 new fire stations in process. And of course, at the Board of Public Works, we have some great improvements, whether it be broadband or the biodigester that's getting wrapped up, and some of the water initiatives as well. But included in the full budget document for all the capital items, we have a page on all the major projects that kind of identifies, first of all, has a great, pretty picture, and then it kind of also identifies what the cost is, how it's going to be broken down, what the operating impact would be, and even how we're going to pay for it. So lots of great information on that as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dave, who's going to give you a few more highlights. Oh, wait, nope, sorry, I lied. I forgot. So another important part before we talk about the utility rates is, right, that's true. So, so one other important part, obviously, at this time is to talk about the property tax rates, right? So the state of Michigan has a lot of complicated laws when it comes to how you set your rates for property taxes. So I'm going to try to kind of just provide some highlights. In Appendix A, for anybody who's really interested in all the details, in Appendix A in the larger document, we have all of the documents, all the calculations, all of the numbers that you might ever want to look at about property tax. It's actually kind of interesting. But so here at the city, on this chart, we can see I have 3 different rates listed, and I'll explain kind of briefly what that is. The city charter authorizes a tax rate of 17.5 mils. So that's like what the city council says we can do, city charter. So the city proposed rate, I'm dropping down to the bottom, it's 13.8692. The important thing here is we haven't changed that rate for 13 years. So we're trying to really live within our means, not raising that rate. So that middle rate is called the Headley rollback rate, and it's one of those complicated calculations that the state makes us do. And there's a whole bunch of different factors that go in there, but what can happen is you go through the whole calculation and then you might have to roll back your rate. So when the rate started at 17.5, every year it's been slowly rolling back to 14.6442 this year. So what that means is even though we have a city authorized tax rate of 17.5, the max we would be able to levy would be the Headley rollback rate of 14.6442. But it's okay for us because we're still under. But we do have to kind of track that because in the future it could be different. But here is a summary how it looks. We can see that top line is the rate that the city charter allows. Then we see the Headley rollbacks kind of coming down, and then we can see the rate that we do, which has stayed the same for 13 years. And included in the larger document on page 29, we do an analysis, kind of we check, make sure we're in line with all the other municipalities around here, so we like to see where we're at. And so we rank 19 out of 55 Michigan cities for the lowest property tax rate, which is not bad considering a lot of those, several of those in front of us have sources like their own income tax, or they have some significant industry that provides some other type of revenue. So now I will go to Dave, and then we'll both be available for questions.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thanks, Dave.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. It's wonderful to be with you again. As was mentioned before, we've discussed these budgets quite a lot, including the Holland Board of Public Works in open meeting in March, going through and approving this before it even comes to the council. So that's another step in this process. So I'm going to truly just hit some highlights for each of the utilities and then be available for questions. But important to point out, probably for those watching at home, just some again, high-level things about each of the 4 utilities that we operate at the BPW. And excited to say that for the electric utility, there are no rate adjustments planned this year. We're going to have a summary page and then kind of a rate comparison here so you could take a look at that. We have a lot of capital work ahead of us, though. We all know that there's investments that are going to be going in to serve large loads that are increasing. We heard growth tonight, with the tax abatement discussion, but also LG. So our staff is busily out there adding new circuitry, increasing the capacity of our system to the tune of about $114 million planned in capital work over the next 5 years, and about 106 of that in our distribution area. Our cash balances with our financial plan remains very strong, even without any rate increases needed this year. If you look at where we stack up on a residential level, other than the Zeeland Board of Public Works, we are the lowest among this peer group that we have here. Far lower than the investor-owned utilities. We actually are able to save our customers a little over $40 a month in comparison to those that are getting the equivalent amount of electricity for consumers' energy. That's a $500 proposition per year that people are able to keep in their pockets. So if you look back here on this 5 years, this is the lowest, this is lower than 5 years ago. If this graph extended 5 more years, this rate is still lower than what it was 10 years ago. I'm not sure what else people are consuming today that they can say that right now they're paying less than what they paid, let alone last year, if not 5 or 10 years ago. Same, as a matter of fact, better here. We're better than Zeeland as it relates to the commercial rate, better among all these peer groups. And then on the industrial, again, a very sizable advantage on the industrial rate. So very strong position for the electric utility, very healthy position forecasted over the next 5 years. For broadband, we know that a big effort here over the next 5 years is building out Holland City Fiber. You could see our planned capital expenditures supported by the millage funded bond that was recently sold to support the passes being built throughout the city, past every home and every business in the city of Holland. And we're excited to say, and had an informational meeting last night, that we're getting close in Fiber Hoods 2 and 3 to actually doing the fulfillment services of actually running to the homes and getting people going on that. So we're very excited as we continue to see a lot of flags around town where there's undergrounding going on there. If the take rate matches our expectations, the broadband utility will be in great financial position. And matter of fact, we would hope that it would allow us to either reduce rates over time or potentially pay off the electric utility, which is loaning some of the funds for the actual drops from the street or the back lot to the home in a faster time frame, which will help the financial health of the broadband utility as well. Again, those rates are in place. Not a comparison here because hard to find a lot of comparisons for 2 gigabit symmetrical service out there. So, but $45 a month, a very attractive offer for that. The water utility is an area that has a lot of needs, both from a infrastructure age perspective as well as a regulatory constraint on the replacement of galvanized service lines with a lead gooseneck. You can see here that we've got just under $50 million planned, and that's up from our previous plan. A lot of that having to do with distribution improvements. When we look at the pace of replacing those services and then we look at the distribution infrastructure in the street, it makes sense in the long run for us to address both the distribution line and the service lines. That's the lowest cost long-term proposition for our customers to do that. The issue is that from a cash flow perspective, we are about $4 million short on our cash flow. Right now we generate about $6 million a year in cash flow. We need to get that number to about 10. And so our plan here is to make adjustments over the next few years in order to reach that level. And so we have planned this year about a $3.50 per month increase for the normal summer bill. It would be less than that for the winter bill, and I'll show you a summary of what that means here in a moment. We're also looking for the first time to create a tiered rate system where the first 4 units of consumption are a much lower rate than the higher, and that is because also what we're facing with growth in water is that at some point we will start to get to a point where our water plant is starting to reach a capacity that we might need to put more planning and potentially investment in. However, that's only for a very short period of time in a year when irrigation demands are very high. So we are launching efforts in our budget this year to help customers be as wise as possible in their use of our water. And so irrigation audits, smart technology, potentially ultimately incentivizing investing in converting to sustainable grasses, native grasses in some areas where it makes sense. All efforts to keep that demand down while allowing our base consumption to grow. So that is the plan for the water utility. If you see where we stack up on Ottawa County, we look like we're pretty much kind of right in the middle of the group there, and we are. What you don't see in this comparison is that when you look at it on a statewide basis, you can see that the Ottawa County communities, and ours is the bar graph that's red there, the other Ottawa County communities are the ones that are kind of grayed there. We are actually at the far lower end of the statewide comparison in water rates. And so with the adjustments that we're looking at making next year and also after our 5-year comparison, we still will be in good shape. We also know that many other systems are making significant improvements and are shifting their rates as well. And so this is a situation that is pretty common right now with the aging infrastructure of our water systems in the state of Michigan and throughout the country. but again, a very competitive offering as it relates to water yet. In wastewater, there again, good news here, no retail rate adjustments. We do have some very high strength customers where we made some proposed adjustments to surcharge rates because with the new anaerobic digester, there are new capital investments that have been made that those high strength customers should be paying part of that investment as well. In the wastewater utility, we do have, again, about $30 million planned in capital expenditures over the next 5 years. About $16 million of that is in the collection system. Other things that we have coming up have to do with disinfection in system improvements at our water reclamation facility as well. And then there are some investments that are being made, again, for customer growth, but will be paid for, like a lot of our electric infrastructure additions, by LG Energy Solution as part of the development agreement amendment that the City Council adopted here recently. Overall, in the wastewater utility, we project to have strong cash balances for the 5-year forecast. And again, we sit pretty much at I would say the lower third here of the comparisons in Ottawa County from a wastewater rate comparison as well. So maintaining a very favorable proposition there. Overall, and this might be a little bit tough to see if you're watching the graphic from home, but essentially we're looking at just that roughly $3.50 change in the water rate. Everything else remains flat. If you looked at the total bill here and adjusted it for inflation, again, for the last 10 years, people are paying significantly less adjusted for inflation than what they were 10 years ago. Matter of fact, that number in 2016 dollars, instead of $140 roughly per month, would be closer to $106 when you adjust that. So again, shown very good constraint on our cost, our management of that, and our rates. And so again, if you're taking all these services, you can feel comfortable that you are getting a very, very good deal for your utilities. And that's where we are with the utilities.
Questions for staff members? Yeah, Lynn, Ms. Raymond.
Lynn, thank you so much for the budget in brief. It came out the day I was presenting to Freedom Village, to a room full of folks over there, and I used the whole thing. It's so well organized and gave them great basic information. So thank you for making me look good and for making this city look great too. So thank you so much for that. I just wanted to ask both of you, have there been any, since we reviewed this a couple of weeks ago, have there been any substantial changes that you can, I mean, substantial to you?
No, not at the city, none.
No, neither with the BBW as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Ms. Soul.
Dave, thank you both. Dave, I'm questioning or had a question about the native plants. You know, I know there's, that would be great. From my perspective, being a homeowner, I have lots of grass and I just getting tired of the work. But, you know, I think there's some great collaboration opportunities for native species. I mean, it helps. And so will you be doing that? I know you guys do a few different things like electronics.
Yeah, so the first steps in the process have to do with education. Next steps have to do with some of the technology advantages and audits. So we actually are finalizing a plan for rollouts of those things. We also have in our budget a full-time equivalent member to be part of our team that also handles our energy waste reduction programs, but now we'll be focusing on water demand management. So a lot of that education is going to come out of that area. A lot of the coordination of irrigation audits and things like that are going to be out of that area eventually. Yes, down the road, that is a plan, but not one of the early steps. We also probably be focusing on those areas that have very large acreage opportunities. So like a Hope College, for example, or some of our primary manufacturers that have huge properties where there are opportunities to do something with a landscape alternative. Those will probably be our primary focus. But there are great learning opportunities from an educational standpoint that homeowners still could take advantage of on a residential level.
Thank you. That brings it into perspective.
Other questions? Mr. Freeman.
Not so much a question, just a statement for particularly Lynn, but you too, Dave, you can get on this. So appreciate you guys, your work, your love of it, Lynn. Some days my eyes want to roll back in my head. But I know I speak for all of us, we just really appreciate your passion and thoroughness to everything you've done, so thanks so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff members? I've got a couple for Dave. Well, Dave, you mentioned the plans that we have in place in regard to water and trying to help people conserve. First, I want to allay any fears that there might be in the community. We're not looking at a situation where somebody's going to turn the tap and nothing's going to come out.
No, it's not like that, right? Not at all.
And I know it's a complicated process, but
Sure.
we've got the BPW's got regulations that they have to follow, that if we start getting maximum usage, that the regulatory agencies, and I forget what they are, say, hey, you've got to start planning for expansions because you're starting to see your water usage get to a high percentage of what your capacity is.
Yeah, so the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy at the state regulates that, and at 80% of our water treatment plant capacity, we need to start planning. At 90% of our plant capacity, they really want activity going on in terms of actual expansion work. And so, looking at the cost of expanding that over what is a fairly small amount of usage, I mean, irrigation demands really hit that kind of high level about a handful of days a year. You're really talking about 5 or less days. It is much more cost effective to try to find techniques to help our customers manage that demand at those critical times, as opposed to making the investment and then having that cost borne by everyone.
So to rephrase that in a way that I can understand, we're getting close to that 80% number on a handful of days a year,
Correct.
which could trigger then this need to start doing more planning and more building and now have all of this extra capacity that we don't really need.
Yeah.
So to address that, what we're trying to do is teach people to do the right thing and make the right thing the easy thing, to try to reduce that usage so we don't end up having to build a whole lot more infrastructure that we would only need a handful of days a year.
You got it, exactly.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I wanted to make sure that people understood that. A couple of questions about broadband.
Yeah.
We passed the broadband millage how long ago?
That millage was in August 2022, I believe.
So almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
We just issued the bonds on that, correct?
We recently sold bonds, I think, in fall.
Last fall.
Last fall, yeah.
When are people going to start seeing that hit their tax bills?
I don't think it's until this coming, next tax bill.
So this next tax bill that's
Yeah.
due in August.
Yeah.
So we passed the millage 2 years ago.
Correct.
And we waited 2 years
Yes.
before we started charging people on their tax bills for a broadband system that's the first customers are going to get hooked up when? When's Mr. Schulteis going to get hooked up? Because I think he's the first one on the dais that is in line for this.
Very soon. I don't have an exact date for him, but it will be very soon.
So it's
Yes.
theoretically possible
Yes.
that people could be using this broadband service before that millage has hit their tax bills.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Yeah.
Kudos on
Yeah.
that, by the way,
Yeah.
not only for you, but for the finance department. I think that's a really important thing for the people of Holland to know, that we could have
Yes.
started levying that a while back, but we did everything we could to try to push that back until people were actually starting to get use of the service.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. And
Yeah.
and you mentioned something about a $45 a month for 2 gigabit up and down, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Is that just an introductory rate?
No, that is not just an introductory rate. That is a rate that is based upon our projection of cost of service, and we're very hopeful. And that if people do come in and sign up, that rate may not even have to stay there. It could actually come down over time.
So you're not going to come back to me a year after I sign up and say, oh, by the way, you need to sign up for a 4-year contract,
Yes,
and now it's
that's right.
$145 a month.
Absolutely
Okay,
not.
great. Thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate that. I just want to make
Yeah.
sure everybody understood all of those things. Any other questions, Ms. Soul?
So you're saying Mike's gonna have to pay 45, and then when it comes down to the third ward, I might be able to pay less.
That's possible. But the good news for Mike is that if that's the rate for you, it'll also be for Mike at that
I'm
time.
teasing.
Yes.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments for staff? Great, thank you. This item also requires a public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing on the fiscal year 2025 city budget. Is there any member of the public that would like to address council in regard to this particular item? Seeing none, I will close the public comment period. What is the pleasure of council in regard to the fiscal year 2025 city budget?
Move to support. Move to approve.
Moved by Byrd. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Soul. Any discussion? I can't let this pass. I'm sorry, I know I could, but I'm not going to.
really.
I'm not going to. This is, and I say this every year, this is the most important thing we do all year. We are entrusted with $233 million of the public's money this year. I really want to put an exclamation point on what our staff the incredible work our staff has done for over 4 months on putting this together. We started this process back in December, then in January, listened to the public, listened to the staff. Staff then worked very hard to put together a budget that is balanced to the penny. I want to make sure that the public understands it's a balanced budget. No tax increase for 13 years in a row, which is unbelievable. And of that $233 million, over a third of it, $88.8 million, is infrastructure improvement in this community. We have an incredibly talented staff, an incredibly efficient staff, an incredibly caring staff. We are good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. I think that they're getting incredible value for this. And kudos to staff on all of the hard work that you do. And as Mr. Van Beek said earlier, this is a very abbreviated budget review compared to the hours and hours and hours that not only this council has put on, and the many times more hours that staff has put in to do a stellar budget. Thank you. We greatly appreciate this. Brenda, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Soul.
Yes.
Shay.
Yes.
Schulteis.
Yes.
Bird.
Yes.
Vreeman.
Yes.
Raymond.
Yes.
Corbin. Yes. Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda, item 9, written petitions and communications. In addition to providing the public the opportunity to come and speak to us in person at our council meetings, we do also have an email address where you can send information to all of City Council. We review those emails in between our regular meetings and then accept them into the record when we have them. We do not have any this evening, but I always like the public to know. Public comment at cityofholland.com. That's public comment at cityofholland.com is the email that you use to get in touch with all of the city council members. Next item on the agenda is item 12E 6.1, gifts. Brenda, would you please review the gifts for us?
The city manager's office is pleased to report the following gifts. For Parks and Recreation Department 2024 Summer Concert Series, $4,000 from Barbara Ford, $4,000 from Blaine's Farm and Fleet, and $4,000 from Hayworth. For the Parks and Recreation Department Sal Perez Scholarship Program, $714.85 from the Sal Perez Scholarship Fund fundraising softball tournament held in April. Revenues totaled $1,615.59, and expenses totaled $900.74. It's recommended these are accepted with appreciation, credited to the appropriate account, and expressions of gratitude be forwarded to the donors.
Great, thank you. What is the pleasure of council in regard to the gifts?
Motion to approve 12 Echo 6.1 as recommended.
Moved by Schulteis. Is there support? Support by Vreeman. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'm really going to have to learn what all of those words are that you're saying instead of letters, Mr. Schulteis. Next item on the agenda, item 12E 6.2, award bid for Holland Park Fire Station. Mr. Van Beek.
Mr. Mayor and Council, speaking of capital investment in taking care of our infrastructure, we're very happy to bring you information tonight on the Holland Park Fire Station bid. I'm going to ask Matt Van Dyken, Assistant City Manager and Program and Building Project Extraordinaire Manager, a report on that. We also have our representative from GDK and our fire captain here tonight to talk about this very important project that we're moving forward with. So Matt, take it away.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's not quite 8 o'clock, so we're doing all right tonight. There seems to be a theme lately at council meetings, and that's kind of things we've been talking about for a while, and this would fall directly in that. I think we've been talking about these fire stations for in excess of 4 years now. So this is an exciting project. We are wrapping up Waverly, and maybe Keith, if you could advance the slides. There we go. Thank you very much. So just a reminder of what we're doing out there at Collin Park is a complete interior remodel. So we're going through the entire facility, basically gutting it and rebuilding it. There are a couple of small additions that will actually be included with that. And then we'll be 15 individual dorm rooms, individual restrooms and shower rooms, just like we're doing at Waverly. We're going to remove and replace the bay floor. So where the truck bays are, where the trucks park overnight, that's going to come out and get replaced. And then the hot cold zone idea and the firefighter safety idea, that's something that Cap and I talked about a couple of weeks ago. He had come back from a conference, and actually the city of Battle Creek is doing this as well, but making sure that the contaminants that these guys walk into in a fire or any kind of a medical situation stays away from where they live. That's a huge thing for a lot of reasons, but really firefighter cancers and just being able to be safe in a work environment that isn't always safe is a huge investment in what we're doing for the folks that work for us. And then dignity, individual dignity. We do have men, women that are on our fire service currently. When that building was built, that was probably the last thing that anybody thought would ever happen, but we're glad and we're lucky to have some pretty awesome firefighters that, quite frankly, don't have their own space. And now we're going to be, with your approval tonight, providing them with that. So, Keith, if you could move forward just a couple of slides. The Collin Park Fire Station is a neighborhood fire station. It's one of those places that everybody that goes to Collin Park, for all of the reasons that people go to Collin Park, the station's just across the street. A lot of times the bay doors will be open, and you'll see folks that are at a Juneteenth event or the 4th of July fireworks in the park will be interacting and having discussions with our staff out there, which I think is absolutely wonderful. Kids light up, well, actually mayors light up when they get to ride in the fire truck, right? I think we all do. So that's a really important piece. But yeah, so this is moving forward. Keith, if you go to the next slide, please. So Waverly Road is nearing occupancy. We will likely be moving people into that facility within the next month or so. The budget that we're proposing to you for Collin Park is $6,314,786, kind of a not exactly a round number, but that includes the construction budget, and there's some more detail on that in your report, and also the owner side, the furniture and architecture and engineering fees and the station alerting system and all the things that we have to carry on our side of the budget. So we are tracking currently to be under that bond that was issued in 2022 for $18 million. Some of you weren't on council, I guess, but those of you that were, we were looking at roughly $12 million and $6 million, and we've been pretty close to that. But we're tracking to come in under. I don't think we're going to come in fire truck under, but I think we will be able to come in under that budget. So the request that's before you is to include a overall project budget of the $6.3 million, and also you declare the contents of the 2 existing stations as surplus, because we've got to get rid of a lot of stuff and a lot of miscellaneous stuff, and then you'd approve our office to approve change orders up to $35,000.
Great. Any questions for staff? I just have one, Matt. Could you scroll back a couple of slides to the renderings? It was the second rendering that you had, that one right there.
Mm-hmm.
Can we have them update that rendering so that pickup truck is gray rather than red? Because I believe Captain Tinney's truck is actually gray, and I want to make sure these are as accurate as possible.
Well, actually, Captain Tinney and I drive the same pickup truck, and mine's white, so we may have to upgrade that to white because I'm going to be spending a lot of time at this station.
Well played, Mr. Van Dyken, well played. All right, any other questions or comments? Great. What is the pleasure of council in regard to item 12E 6.2?
We move that we, go ahead.
Nope.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say a motion to support item 12, Echo 6.2, for the award bid of Collin Park Fire Station.
Moved by Corbin. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Vreeman. Any discussion? All right. Seeing none, Brenda, would you please call the roll?
Okay. Shea,
Yes.
Schultheis,
Yes.
Bird,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Corbin,
Yes.
Soul,
Yes.
and Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Item number 13, communications from the city manager. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and sorry, I do have several items that I need to go through tonight, so bear with me. First of all, our city media team does a fantastic job of putting out information. Hopefully, a lot of you already received the monthly newsletter, the e-newsletter. A lot of great information in there, and in particular, recapped our excitement of having the ice rink groundbreaking last week. So we were able to celebrate that event for one day, and then we got to work. So crews are out there right now and doing that. So we're excited about that moving forward. I do have, and I'm going to hold up the front page of this draft plan right now. We always work on the strategic and the business plan kind of in the same cycle as the budget because they go hand in hand. And as you've all learned, all of the items that you take action on in any agenda links back to the strategic and business plan. We have the draft of that plan that would be effective July 1 completed. I will be sending this out to all of you for review and input. I would ask if you maybe have any suggestions, just send those back to us for us to take a look at. We would like to have this as an action item at the May 15 council, if possible. Talking about meetings moving forward, I'm going to talk about and show you something on Tulip Time momentarily because that's next week, so we don't have a regular meeting. But then on May 15, we have a regular meeting. On May 22, we have a study session. I will let you know that on that evening, we are expecting to have Hope College, the Frost Center, come in and make a presentation on our citizen survey results. And I'm hoping and maybe looking at all of you in real time, is everyone possibly planning on being here on May 22? We have held for quite a long time. We really would like to go through the Colby results with all of you. We think that that's actually quite beneficial, not only for all of you as you work together, but also in interaction with staff. Is anyone roughly aware? We are tentatively going to try to then, that'll be a good night where we'll take some time with the citizen survey results, and we'll also look to go over Colby that night. So that'd be fantastic. And then May 29 is a Wednesday. Fifth Wednesdays, we try to take those off, and that continues to be the plan. I will point out that I was a panelist yesterday at the Habitat for Humanity annual event and fundraiser. And I was asked to do that not only to talk about kind of city and not just City of Holland, but overall municipal government perspectives on affordable housing, but also to highlight, as all of you know, a lot of the partnerships that we have in place, not only with Habitat, but with Jubilee. And as one of our speakers talked tonight, very excited about the state LIHTC, Low Income Housing Tax Credit announcement, supporting a project that already had been reviewed and gained approval of Planning Commission and City Council. That's looking at both Collin Park Drive, but also the corner of 10th and Pine. So we're excited about all of that being finalized and hopefully begin shortly. DeGraff Nature Center, you will recall that we had talked to you previously and actually proceeded with an amount under emergency purchasing rules to proceed with a project there. You'll recall a couple things. It makes it easier. We had a very generous donation from the Heiberg Trust of a wonderful lady that had a connection to the DeGraff Nature Center. It was one of those, you'll open up your mail one day and you go, oh, wow. Didn't expect that. And it was a donation that is now totaling over $1 million in support of the DeGraff Nature Center. We were doing and planning some upgrades at DeGraff anyway, and then sometimes, like a lot of my home improvement projects, you tear it open and you find some surprises that aren't always so great. And in true City of Holland fashion, and especially Matt Van Dyken fashion, when you're going to do something, we say we're going to do it right. We're going to spend the money, if we have it, to do it right the first time. So Matt is going to give you just a couple highlights on what we've offered, which at this point I've signed for, but as our purchasing rules require, that we're informing you that we're moving forward with those upgrades at the DeGraff Nature Center. Matt?
Yeah, so starting within the next couple of weeks, we will be removing roof trusses, adding new roof trusses to increase the pitch of the roof at DeGraff and replacing the entire roof, along with all of the interior insulation, drywall, and exterior siding. That will be replaced with cement board siding that has a feel and a look that looks like what DeGraff is. The look and feel of the DeGraff Nature Center is going to stay the same. I think that's a very important piece to the community, and especially I think it nods to the gift that was given to us, that we keep it the way that this person that it meant a lot to last saw it. So it will have the look and the feel, but it will be a rock solid building that should last another, 50 years, with cement board siding, a new roof, a new interior, upgraded electrical. And we think it's going to be a showcase, even though it's the look and feel will stay the same. We've actually had a very generous offer from our friends at the Board of Public Works to do some HVAC equipment upgrade out there as well, not as part of our project, but at a later date, so that Nature Center can now be kind of an energy efficiency showplace. So the new installation, all the work at the DeGraff Nature Center is going to be a big part of that. But it is basically we're taking it to the studs and rebuilding it and doing it right, and that's the way to do it.
And then finally, you may be aware that there's this event happening in town next week that all of us probably say it's already been starting. So if you need a little encouragement and some walk-up music, I think they say now, here's your walk-up music. And that's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Keith. Next item on the agenda, appointments and communications from the mayor. I do have an appointment this evening. I would ask the council to please approve the appointment of Mark Mashili to the Human Relations Commission for a partial term, said partial term expiring on June 30, 2025. Mr. Mashili will be replacing Commissioner Michelle Slickers. And I would also ask council to accept the resignation of Michelle Slickers, who resigned from the Human Relations Commission on August 18, 2023. And I would be looking for a motion in that regard.
So moved.
Moved by Vreeman. Is there support? Support by Sol. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And that is all I have this evening. Next item is appointments, motions, and communications from council members. Anything from council members this evening? Mr. Vreeman.
Well, good evening. In follow of dear Keith's video, and just so appreciate all the work first that the city has done in partnership with the festival and making our community shine. Way to go. We're already enjoying it. The weather has cooperated so far, so good. And I'm just happy for the residents that they are able to engage in it early. So thanks, Keith, and your team. And I will just dovetail a little bit into everything that you do, Matt. and all the money and the projects and all the stuff and just navigating Parks and Rec. Thanks. I think to put on hospitality at this, a party at this velocity for this many people, just way to go. So thank you. And for our for the windmill team, as well as all the visitors that they're going to be navigating over the next 2 weeks, already thank you extended to Matt and his team out there. For our residents, it's time for us to shine as residents and to be patient with one another. I know we've got a ton of construction happening, road construction, and we've kind of found our alternate routes. We just need to keep putting on a smile and offer hospitality and ways for people to get out of the city. They can get here, but they never can leave. But just to show people that as we engage with just hundreds of thousands of people. And so thanks in advance. Thanks, City, for your great partnership with Tulip Time. And tours start. I get off work starting in 2 days, and we're going to entertain personal tours for probably over 7,000 people, talking to them specifically. So it's going to be just incredible.
Any other motions, communications from council members? Great. Next, I would entertain a motion to enter a closed-door session to review a written legal opinion with the city's attorney's office. Typically, when we go into these closed-door sessions, we'll let you know whether or not there's going to be any likelihood of action afterwards. In this instance, there is likely action that the council will be taking following the closed-door session. If you would like to stay in City Hall and wait for us to do that, you are more than welcome to do that. For those people who are watching on video, we're not going to keep our video production people here during that closed-door session. If you're interested in finding out whether we may had engaged in any action, and if we did, what that action is, you can check the minutes and you can find out even by contacting City Hall first thing tomorrow morning. But for council, I would entertain a motion to enter into a closed-door session to review a written legal opinion with the city attorney's office.
So moved.
Moved by Vreeman. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Soul. Brenda, would you please call the roll?
Schulteis.
Yes.
Bird.
Yes.
Vreeman.
Yes.
Raymond.
Yes.
Corbin.
Yes.
Soul.
Yes.
Shay.
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
All
Okay, great, thank you. We're going to take a quick 5-minute restroom break before we start that to give us an opportunity to clean the room, get ready, clean out the room, get ready for the closed door session. Thank you.